she will not be participating in the All-Star game or the three-point contest.
Walks there to the stanchion, obvious frustration.
The Indiana Fever have just released a statement, and it's the moment fans have been waiting for. After days of silence from the league, after millions watched the now infamous play, and after mounting pressure from every corner of the internet, the Fever organization has broken its silence following Jacy Sheldon's suspension. And let's be clear, the league is officially on fire.
Yeah, I mean, there's a level of physicality that they're able to play with against her. You know, I'm not exactly sure why, but it just is what it is. And we've got to help her learn to adjust and use it against them in certain ways.
This wasn't just a controversial call. It was a flashpoint. Jacy Sheldon has been suspended after delivering a viral, now heavily scrutinized knee to Caitlin Clark's groin, an act caught from multiple angles, replayed in slow motion, dissected frame by frame, debated across sports media.
So as you guys can see here, she is dribbling down, she plants her foot, she passes the ball to Kelsey Mitchell on the back door, and then when she is running back on the other end of the court, it seems like she's grabbing her.
Over 12 million views in the first day, surging beyond that before the outrage even cooled. Fans outraged, sponsors watching, all-star tickets being dumped. And through all of that, the WNBA tried to stay quiet. But now, Indiana is speaking, and they're not mincing words. In their statement, the Fever expressed deep disappointment in how the game was handled and emphasized the need to protect all players, especially their stars.
And I swear, every time these two teams go up against one another, something happens, and it's honestly never good.
They didn't call out Sheldon by name. They didn't have to. The implication was unmistakable. This wasn't basketball. This was a failure to act, a failure to officiate, a failure to protect. It nearly cost them the face of the league, because this wasn't just any mid-season matchup.
Caitlin Clark is getting hurt damn near every week.
Caitlin Clark was on a tear. 14 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists in under 30 minutes. She looked like herself again, confident, fluid, in rhythm, steering Indiana toward what should have been a clean third straight win.
And immediately grabs the inside of that right leg.
Then one motion, one sudden, unnatural extension, and she was on the floor, clutching her groin. Not a routine bump, not a routine fall. Worse. You could see it in the way the bench froze, in the way the arena air flattened into a strange, echoing hush. Fans weren't having it. The footage doesn't lie. Sheldon's knee rises, off the ground, extended, locked, angled deliberately into Clark's path. Multiple camera angles, no ambiguity.
And I'm here to tell you, it is not a good moment in the fan base. Fans are quiet online. A lot of people are starting to look like they're reselling their all-star ticket.
The Fever statement laser targets that growing concern without slipping into pure emotion. They frame it as principle, not about favoritism, about fairness, about an ecosystem where no player, star or not, is left unprotected when physicality crosses the line. And everyone who has watched this season knows this isn't the first time Clark's taken a borderline shot. It isn't the first time it's gone unchecked. Clark and Sheldon carry a documented history that stretches back years. College matchups pulsing with elbows, subtle grabs, eye pokes, mutual irritation. Earlier this very season, a finger to the eye, still circulating online as Exhibit A in fan-made compilations. So are we really chalking this latest knee up to coincidence? To incidental contact born from hustle? Not anymore. Not with the pattern so visible in the compilation era. The Fever didn't just speak out, they challenged the league's posture. They called for elevated officiating standards, consistent disciplinary structure, rapid protective response. It was the first time this season the organization put institutional pressure on the WNBA in writing tied directly to a single uncalled act. That instantly triggered a wave of reaction, fans reposting each sentence of the statement, influencers overlaying the language onto the slow-motion impact clips, former players injecting commentary on podcasts, sports law analysts hinting at duty of care liabilities. The league's prolonged quiet made this escalation inevitable. Fans are tired. Some aren't just reselling all-star tickets, they're giving them away like protest leaflets. That's not routine churn, that's symbolic withdrawal. Because Clark isn't just a promising rookie, she's the gravitational center of the WNBA's current growth curve. Rating spikes, jersey inventory sellouts, cross-platform national coverage, trace the line, and it keeps landing at her presence. yet she's the one being physically targeted while whistles remain inert. Sources now claim the suspension decision only crystallized after internal multi-angle review and what they dub escalating sponsor concern. Let that phrasing sit with you. Not player safety first, not officiating integrity first, sponsor concern. Because the split-screen slow-motion composites circulating among executives show direct knee, obvious reaction, official proximity, zero officiating intervention. Public outrage plus corporate unease equals urgency, the sequence of pressure forced a decision. But this goes far deeper than one disciplinary line item. This is about institutional reflexes, how fast the league protects its flagship assets when something ugly pierces the highlight reel narrative. So far, by fan metrics, those reflexes are sluggish, bordering on absent. Indiana's statement functions as a warning shot, not just to referees, but to leadership layers. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert's personal silence, the lack of even a boilerplate "we're reviewing the incident," has become its own subplot. Threads now tag NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, practically begging for interleague oversight. A petition calling for Engelbert's removal circulates, cloaked in phrases like failure to protect the league's top asset. Whether or not those demands are realistic, they illustrate a trust deficit widening in real time. Because Clark is no longer just an athlete. She's an economic engine, a narrative anchor, a marketing avatar, a movement. Yet she's absorbing repeated high-risk contact while decision-makers delay public response. The official stationed inches away on the Sheldon play has become an unwilling symbol, a front-row witness frozen in neutral while impact unfolds. When Clark approaches him, visibly pained, and nothing follows, no whistle, no officiating huddle, no late flagrant, fans interpret it as institutional indifference. So they ask the obvious reframing questions. If that happened to Aja Wilson, Sabrina Ionescu, would the reaction mirror this void? It feels like Clark is navigating a separate officiating standard, one hyper-policed for star calls perception, ironically leading to underprotection. As tension peaked, injury speculation deepened. Early sideline body language suggested more than a mild strain. Reports trickled that imaging was inconclusive, that groin adductor soft tissue grading could push her out multiple games, even threaten an all-star appearance. And still, no league-level medical status amplification beyond generic evaluation phrasing. So again, Indiana steps in, confirming she's undergoing progressive assessment and may be out a period of time. Translation: they're plugging the communication gap to shield both player and brand because silence invites rumor inflation. If she misses marquee events, the league doesn't just lose a player, it loses momentum, sponsorship leverage, global conversion funnels, trust arcs with new viewers. Why is the franchise carrying the messaging burden alone? While Clark rehabs, the fan base escalates from frustrated to openly rebellious. The backlash is nuclear in digital velocity. Supercuts of uncalled blows, side-by-side comparison edits with other leagues' immediate flagrant calls. Mass protect Caitlyn trending outside normal WNBA discourse circles. Sheldon's suspension is labeled symbolic, a pressure valve release rather than a structural correction. Fans argue the footage left the league with no alternative anyway. Nothing bold about responding after the virality apex. So, now the ball sits in the league's metaphorical and literal court. Indiana executed its part. They stood up, they documented, they pushed a safety narrative publicly. The unresolved question becomes, what systemic reforms emerge? Without rapid course correction, transparent officiating review, published safety initiatives, tangible accountability, alienation risks scaling into attrition. You can't champion growth metrics built on a singular star while failing to insulate that star from cumulative, preventable wear and reputational hazard. The anatomy of outrage unfolds with a precise timeline. Contact, zero whistle, minutes, no replay trigger, hours, upload cascade, half-day, highlight aggregator saturation, day 1, sponsor inquiries, day 2, franchise statement, suspension. Each rung of delay compounds perception of neglect. A single prompt whistle would have redirected the entire narrative toward performance instead of protective failure. That counterfactual hangs like a cautionary banner over every subsequent decision. Behind closed doors, strategic debates swirl. Do they introduce an eye-in-the-sky specialist authorized to auto-buzz any groin head contact? Do they implement post-game officiating report transparency, akin to last 2-minute reports but expanded for high-risk body zones? Do they institute a cumulative protection index tracking frequency of severe contacts absorbed by top usage players? Every potential reform carries cost, union negotiations, training cycles. But reputational erosion has its own accelerating cost curve, harder to quantify month 1, brutally obvious by quarters 4 and 5. Player solidarity flickers. Some veterans float the idea of coordinated symbolic action. Armbands, momentary tip-off stillness, even a collective pause if protective protocols lag. Rookies privately weigh the risk. Solidarity versus perception of entitlement. Agents counsel caution. Yet the fact these discussions exist at all signals the temperature. Meanwhile, sponsors analyze brand adjacency risk. Marketing departments compile scenario decks. Clark returns quickly versus Clark sidelined extended. Each deck alters copy calendars, media buys, product drop timing. The ripple touches inventory planning, broadcast shoulder programming, international content localization strategies. A single unsanctioned knee triggered cross-department triage. Global chatter amplifies the saga beyond domestic borders. European podcasts frame it as a governance stress test. Australian analysts question whether emerging international talents face heightened physical risk migrating to the league. International expansion relies on projecting professionalism and player care. This incident refracts that projection through a crackled lens. Medically, the nuance matters. Groin adductor complexes resist quick fixes. Unlike a simple contusion, high-grade strains degrade lateral stability. Overprotect and you lose mobility. Underprotect and you invite chronic compensation injuries. Every day she's shelved places micro-drag on narrative engagement loops. Fans new to women's hoops came for nightly Clark highlight packages. If absence stretches, some drift before deeper team allegiances cement. That retention window is fragile. Concurrently, the sabotage via parody optics theory migrates from fringe comments to mid-tier sports talk segments. It posits that overcorrection against star favoritism paradoxically yields underprotection. Dangerous theory, because if left unaddressed by data transparency, it metastasizes into a default fan assumption poisoning future officiating interpretations. The antidote is proactive metrics release, not reactive PR patching. Clark's rehab glimpses leak, ice compression, aquatic treadmill sessions, guarded lateral drills withheld, visible frustration at failed range of motion benchmarks, subtle progress self-reported in minimalist quotes. Each micro-update becomes content. Fans calibrate hope versus fear by interpreting body posture in 8-second clips. That phenomenon underscores how star health narratives drive secondary engagement, podcast segments, YouTube breakdowns, social commentary. Safeguarding health isn't just ethical, it's audience retention infrastructure. The commissioner's strategic dilemma intensifies daily. Admit officiating lapse and risk legal precedent, defend officiating and inflame fans, remain quiet and cede narrative control entirely. Any path must eventually reconcile with negotiated frameworks between the league, officials union, players association, and broadcast partners. Delay increases the cost of whichever remedy emerges because stakeholder patience depreciates like a rapidly aging asset. Potential reforms get floated internally or speculatively. Automated trigger reviews for any contact flagged by AI pattern detection. Yes, prototypes exist. Escalating referee accountability grading with partial public release. Targeted protective clinics focusing on legal defensive body positioning to reduce borderline escalation instincts. Each idea signals modernization, but modernization requires capital, training cycles, and cultural buy-in. Ironically, high-growth moments like a Caitlin Clark era are the rare windows when stakeholders are most willing to fund transformation. Squander the window, and inertia reasserts control. All the while, Indiana recalibrates identity, from lucky custodians of the phenom to advocate franchise leveraging platform to push safety paradigm. That repositioning may resonate with future free agents seeking supportive organizational culture. It also shores internal morale. Players witness leadership publicly taking their side, a powerful intangible for retention and cohesion. As the next nationally televised Fever game approaches, a countdown aura envelops discourse. Will the opening minutes reveal hyper-tight whistles, a symbolic overcorrection? Will fans stage visible but contained protest gestures? Will broadcast commentary lean heavy into officiating nuance or pivot to sanitized highlight chatter? Every micro-choice will be scanned by audiences now primed to assign meaning to officiating cadence, body language, camera lingering. This entire saga compresses into a distilled challenge. Can a fast-evolving league upgrade protective governance at the same speed it monetizes breakout stardom? If it can, the Clark incident becomes a foundational case study in responsive evolution. If it cannot, it becomes the cautionary parable told at future sports business conferences, how a growth spurt tripped over its own inertia. The Fever have done what a single franchise can realistically do without mutiny: document, speak, pressure, reframe the conversation into systemic stakes instead of isolated grievance. The next move requires levels above them to articulate an unambiguous ethos. That star power isn't a vulnerability to be balanced out, but an asset to be stewarded with fairness standards applied consistently across the roster spectrum. Because Caitlin Clark's body has become, unfairly yet unavoidably, the battleground where competing narratives collide: spectacle versus safety, parody optics versus principled officiating, short-term drama versus long-term sustainability. A single decisive, transparent corrective architecture could shift the entire emotional weather pattern around the league. Continued opacity keeps the storm churning, so the clock keeps ticking. Fans refreshing feeds, analysts preparing segments, players gauging whether leadership truly hears them, sponsors hovering over contingency spreadsheets, and Clark, working through controlled rehab arcs, waiting for lateral freedom to return, remains the axis. Indiana has drawn its line. The league either meets it with substance or risks eroding the very surge it's been celebrating. The statement lit the fuse. The response will decide whether that fuse powers a protective framework overhaul or burns down goodwill painstakingly built over a season of record highs. The Fever made their position clear. Now it's the league's move, and everybody is watching to see if the court stands for resilience and accountability, or if silence and hesitation become the enduring headline.